ever think about like shaping the future of food? I mean, it sounds crazy, but we're going deep into that world today, agricultural policy.
No need for overalls or anything.
Definitely not. But it's more relevant than people think.
It really is, because this is about every decision, impacting our food from like farm to table.
Totally. And we've got RoleCatcher's insights on this, becoming an agricultural policy officer, what skills you need, the whole career path. They even talk about how their tools can get you that job.
Which is huge these days, right?
Huge. But before we get into all that, what do these folks actually do, like day to day? Were there any surprises there for you?
Yeah, when you hear policy, it's easy to picture someone like stuck in an office just pushing paper. But this is surprisingly dynamic. We're talking about engaging with farmers, scientists, economists,
Yeah, okay.
even politicians, trying to like find that common ground. And these are complex issues.
Yeah, not just like which fertilizer works best, but more, how do we get everyone on the same page?
Exactly. It's more about being like a master negotiator, strategist, all of that. Think about all the challenges with our food system these days. Climate change, right? Water's becoming scarce.
Huge issue.
It is. And the population keeps growing. So these agricultural policy officers are the front line, finding solutions that work for the environment and the economy.
Which is where those analytical skills come in. The guide mentioned those were critical.
100%. Imagine having to analyze how a new trade agreement will impact local farmers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you've got crop yields, market prices, even environmental
Oh,
regulations.
so many factors.
So many. You need a sharp mind for all that. You got to communicate to different people.
Right, because not everyone's deep in the data like they are.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got data analysis, negotiation, communication. It's a whole policy mix. But are there any areas these officers specialize in?
That's what's so cool about it. It can be all about international trade, making it fair, helping with food security in developing countries. Or maybe you're passionate about, say, sustainable agriculture. You could craft policies about organic farming, water conservation, stuff like that.
Oh, interesting.
Right? There's even this whole growing area with agriculture and technology, like precision farming, using data to make decisions.
See, this is way broader than I ever thought. It's not just helping farmers, it's like the whole planet, these big problems we're facing.
Exactly. That's what makes it so interesting. You're shaping how we feed ourselves in the future.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is. But that makes me wonder, how do you become one of these policy people?
So wait, are you saying I could like ditch the desk job and actually help solve global food crises? Sign me up.
Well, hold your horses.
Okay.
It's not quite as simple as that. But you're right, the impact is huge.
Right. But let's get real for a second. What does it really take to get started in this field? The guide mentions some skills, but I'm curious to dig a little deeper.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned ditching the desk job, because while you'll definitely still be doing analysis and reports, the skills you need are becoming more and more important across many different fields. It's not enough to just be an expert in one area anymore. You need to be adaptable, a critical thinker, and like we talked about, a fantastic communicator.
Yeah, communication keeps coming up, doesn't it? I bet it's not just about writing a clear email. Who are these policy officers actually talking to?
That's the thing. This role is so multifaceted. One day, you might be putting together a policy brief for some government official, breaking down complex research into something they can actually understand. The next day, you could be meeting with farmers, telling them about a new policy and answering their questions. You might even find yourself giving a presentation at an international conference, trying to get everyone on board, even when they have totally different points of view.
Okay, I'm starting to understand why active listening was another big one on that list of must-have skills.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine you're trying to create a policy about genetically modified organisms, right?
GMOs, yeah, always a hot topic.
For sure. You've got scientists presenting their research, farmers worried about their crops, people concerned about whether GMOs are safe to eat, and activists pushing for stricter rules. You really have to listen to everyone's point of view if you want to find a solution that works.
It's like you're balancing science and politics and, well, people's feelings all at once. Sounds tricky.
It definitely can be. And the stakes are high. Imagine a country dealing with a serious drought. An agricultural policy officer might be the one analyzing the situation, figure out what can be done, maybe emergency funds, maybe investing in crops that don't need as much water. These are decisions that could impact millions of people.
No pressure, right. But okay, let's shift gears a bit. How does someone actually move up in this career? The guide mentioned 4 main stages, right?
Right. It usually starts with an entry-level position,
Yeah.
maybe as a research assistant or coordinator. That's where you learn the ropes, support the more experienced officers, and start making those connections. The guide had an example of someone at this stage who got to shadow negotiators at international trade talks. Can you imagine?
Wow, talk about a learning experience. What's next?
As you get more experience, you'd move into a junior officer role. That's where you take on more responsibility, like leading your own research, presenting at conferences, maybe even helping to draft policies. There was a really interesting example in the guide, someone who focused on how climate change is impacting coffee production.
Now that's a topic I can get behind,
Hmm.
especially if there are taste tests involved. Okay, but seriously, what happens after you've become, like, the coffee policy expert?
Well, that's when things get really interesting. As a mid-level officer, you're leading policy initiatives, managing teams, and even advising some pretty high-up decision makers. One example they gave was someone who started a whole program to promote sustainable farming in Southeast Asia.
Wow, so they went from looking at spreadsheets to actually changing how farming is done across a whole region.
Exactly. And finally, you reach the top, the Senior Agricultural Policy Officer. You're the go-to expert, shaping policies for a whole country, or even internationally. You might even be mentoring other officers or speaking in front of government committees.
Okay, that sounds kind of terrifying and awesome at the same time.
It definitely comes with its own set of challenges.
Right, the guy did mention some downsides to this career. What are some of the things someone might struggle with?
Well, one of the biggest ones is dealing with all the bureaucracy and politics that come with any policy job. You might have an amazing idea, a real solution, but getting it approved and put into action, that can be a long and frustrating process. And sometimes things you can control, like budget cuts or changes in who's in power, can completely derail your work.
Yeah, that's tough. You're putting in the work, you have a good idea, and then poof, gone. 'Cause someone higher up decides to change course.
It's true. And it's not always easy to swallow, but I think what keeps people going is knowing that their work really matters. It's about, like we said, creating a food system that actually works for everyone.
Okay, so for anyone listening who's, like, totally inspired now, how does RoleCatcher actually help them get that job? We talked about the info they have, but what about the tools?
That's what's so cool. They don't just tell you about the job. They give you the tools to get it. They have stuff to help you stand out, which is so key now.
Right. Like their CV and resume builder, which honestly, I could have used that back in the day. Putting this together was always such a pain.
Tell me about it. It's like, how am I supposed to fit my whole life on one page?
Right.
But RoleCatcher's tool, it's not just about making it look nice. They actually use AI to give you feedback based on real job descriptions for agricultural policy officer roles. So it's like having a career coach in your back pocket.
Whoa, that's amazing. And then there's the interview, which, nerve-wracking. The guide mentioned RoleCatcher has stuff for that too.
They do. They have this whole thing that simulates job interviews. You answer questions, and the AI gives you feedback like how you did. It's a total game changer to practice your answers, get comfortable talking about yourself, and you can even prepare for those weird, unexpected questions they throw at you.
It's like they're giving you the map A&D, the tools to get to your destination.
Exactly. It's a competitive world out there. It's not enough to just be good at the job. You got to show them WHY you're the best. And tools like this, they can really give you an edge.
It really sounds like RoleCatcher is the go-to if you're serious about this career, even just curious. Honestly, I think we've shown how important this field is beyond just getting the job.
100%. It's about solving problems, working together, and making sure there's enough food for everyone on this planet.
Who knows? Maybe one of our listeners will be the one to come up with that amazing policy or negotiate that big trade deal or start that program that changes everything.
Now's the time to get into it. If you're hearing this and you're even a little bit interested, go for it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And if you want to dive deeper into other cool careers, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive. Until next time.